The war between Russia and Ukraine is entering a new and tumultuous phase, with missile and drone attacks from Ukraine reaching unprecedented levels. These strategic strikes have exposed weaknesses in Russia's air defenses and demonstrated a remarkable improvement in Ukraine's military capabilities. In addition, targeting critical infrastructure and oil refineries has increased the level of economic losses, posing complex challenges for both sides in the conflict that has been going on since February 2022. This war is not limited to material losses, but reflects important turning points in modern military tactics and strategy. Ukraine has launched a large-scale attack on key Russian oil refineries, marking a serious escalation in the economic war between the two countries. Ukrainian security forces have successfully carried out attacks on 12 refineries, causing heavy damage to Russia's energy infrastructure. Since the beginning of 2024, these attacks have intensified, reaching up to 1,500 km deep into Russian territory. The Gazprom Neftekhim Salavat complex in Bashkortostan was one of the first targets, where critical equipment such as catalytic converters was severely damaged. This was followed by the Tuapse refinery on the Black Sea, where a liquefied natural gas unit was destroyed by a drone. Another attack targeted the Lukoil refinery in Volgograd, which has a capacity of 300,000 barrels per day, causing significant damage. The weapons used by Ukraine in these attacks were diverse and modern. The Ukrainian army deployed the American ATACMS missile with a range of 190 miles, along with the British Storm Shadow and French Scalp missiles capable of striking within a range of 155 miles. In particular, the domestically produced Liuti drones of Ukroboronprom, which carry a 75 kilokilograms warhead and can operate at a distance of more than 1,000 kilometers, were used effectively in these attacks. The attacks focused on Russia's major oil refining centers, especially in the south. In Krasnodar Krai, 20% of the attacks targeted strategic infrastructure. The Novoshakhtinsk oil refinery in the Rostov region destroyed 1.5 million tons of oil and fuel products, causing damage of about $540 million USD. These attacks briefly knocked out about 12% of Russia's oil refining capacity. In addition, facilities in Samara Oblast, Ryazan, and Kaluga also suffered major losses, with production capacity severely reduced. The Ukrainian military campaign has not only inflicted significant material damage, but also forced strategic adjustments on Russia. The effectiveness of these attacks is evident in their far-reaching impacts, including compelling Moscow to reallocate its air defense systems. For instance, Russia was forced to postpone the export of 2 S-400 air defense missile systems to India, originally scheduled for delivery in 2024, until 2026. This delay underscores the dual economic and strategic toll these strikes have imposed on Russia, highlighting the precision and impact of Ukraine's military operations. One of the most affected sectors is Russia's oil industry, which has experienced severe disruptions due to these targeted attacks. Major oil refineries across the country have suffered extensive damage, leading to a significant decline in crude oil processing capacity. Production levels have dropped by 500,000 to 900,000 barrels per day, equivalent to 8–14% of Russia's total processing capability. This substantial reduction further amplifies the strategic impact of Ukraine's campaign, as it targets a critical pillar of Russia's economy and energy infrastructure. The attacks forced Russia to shut down about 14% of its refining capacity in the first quarter of 2024. National refining output fell to 5.2 million barrels per day in April 2024, down from 5 million barrels in January. The Norsy refinery, Russia's fourth largest facility, saw gasoline output fall by 40%. Total fuel exports, including fuel oil, diesel, naphtha, and kerosene, also fell by 9.1% in 2024. The economic impact of the attacks is multifaceted. Directly affected facilities such as Norsy suffered revenue losses of up to $100 million per month. Fuel export revenues fell by $135 million in April 2024 alone. Repair costs for damaged infrastructure are estimated to be in the tens of millions of dollars per plant, while shipping costs are around $10 to $15 per barrel higher for routes to Asia. To offset the decline in refining capacity, Russia has increased crude oil exports, reaching a 10-month high in March. However, fuel exports via Russia's Baltic ports fell by 9%, and Black Sea and Azov ports recorded a 10% decline. Efforts to repair damaged facilities have been hampered, Largely by Western sanctions, Russian refineries are heavily dependent on technology and expertise from US and European engineering firms. For example, Lukoil has sought help from China to repair its KK-1 unit, but this option may require a complete replacement of the unit rather than a simple repair. Russian Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak predicted that damaged North Sea facilities would be back in operation within 2 months, while Energy Minister Nikolai Shulginov pledged that all refineries would be back online by June. The challenges in repairing damage to Russia's oil infrastructure highlight the country's heavy reliance on Western oilfield services. Companies such as Baker Hughes, Halliburton, and Weatherford. These firms provide proprietary technologies critical for maintaining and improving productivity. A complete withdrawal of these companies from Russia could lead to a significant decline in average well productivity, potentially reducing it by up to a third. This dependence underscores the vulnerabilities within Russia's energy sector, particularly in the face of escalating pressure from Ukrainian attacks. To counter these challenges and safeguard its vital energy infrastructure, Moscow has adopted comprehensive defensive measures. In response to intensified Ukrainian strikes, the Russian Energy Ministry, in collaboration with the Russian National Guard, has initiated the deployment of advanced air defense systems at key oil and gas facilities. This strategy aims to mitigate further damage and ensure the continued functionality of critical infrastructure, even as the energy sector grapples with repair and productivity constraints. The centerpiece of Russia's defense strategy is the installation of Pantsir S-1 mobile air defense systems near major oil refineries, designed during the Soviet era. The system is particularly effective at intercepting low-altitude threats such as aircraft, helicopters, cruise missiles, and drones. Currently, Russia's air defense assets are mainly deployed along the front line and border areas with Ukraine. In addition, the Russian government has taken several measures to strengthen the protection of energy infrastructure. President Putin has granted oil producers licenses to equip and operate their defense weapons. The Energy Ministry also introduced legislative reforms to strengthen protection procedures at these facilities. These include installing protective systems at key oil processing units, deploying medium-range surface-to-air missiles, integrating anti-aircraft artillery systems, and upgrading security around the facilities. In addition to defensive measures, Russia has also developed contingency plans to maintain stability in energy supplies. With about 7% of its refining capacity affected by the attacks, Moscow has deployed strategic responses to minimize disruptions. The Kremlin spokesman stressed that the protective measures have ensured minimal impact on energy supplies to the Russian economy and citizens. Russia has also demonstrated resilience in the oil refining sector. The government has imposed a 6-month ban on gasoline exports starting March 1st to stabilize the domestic market. This strategic decision is aimed at ensuring domestic fuel supplies while damaged facilities are repaired. Russia faces significant limitations in its ability to protect critical facilities due to the limited number of air defense systems in its homeland, according to Andrei Kartopolov, chairman of the Russian Parliament's Defense Committee. The country's current air defense systems are only sufficient to protect important government agencies and military facilities. Some military analysts believe that Russia may be forced to move air defense systems from the Far East and Arctic regions to strengthen the protection of strategic facilities in the country's center. The uncertainty over the protection of Russia's energy infrastructure has had far-reaching effects on global energy markets. Ukraine's missile attacks on Russian oil facilities have disrupted international supply chains, causing major market fluctuations. Brent crude oil, a key benchmark, is expected to average $81 per barrel in 2024, reflecting the market's adjustment to persistent geopolitical tensions. Energy prices have been particularly volatile due to geopolitical uncertainties. The immediate impact has been felt through a surge in commodity prices. In the United States, gasoline prices have surged, with the Producer Price Index for gasoline up 85% year-on-year in June 2022. However, the market has shown resilience, with prices eventually stabilizing at lower levels. The conflict has also severely disrupted global supply chains through a variety of channels. Russian oil exports to traditional markets such as the EU, the US, the UK, and OECD Asia fell by 3 million barrels per day compared to pre-war averages. Meanwhile, India, China and Turkey increased their imports of Russian oil, significantly changing international trade patterns. In addition, shipping routes in the Black Sea region were disrupted, adding pressure to global supply chains. G7 countries are particularly vulnerable to disruptions in Russian energy supplies. According to the International Energy Agency, IEA, rising fuel costs have increased the average cost of electricity generation by 90% globally. In contrast, North America has been less directly affected by these supply chain disruptions. Market sentiment has also been hit hard, reflecting concerns about rising energy prices and the implementation of sanctions. The combination of geopolitical uncertainty and higher commodity prices has contributed to increased market volatility. The global energy sector is currently operating in a context of unusual geopolitical uncertainty, keeping markets cautious. The economic impact of the conflict has been uneven across regions. In Europe, wholesale electricity and gas prices have surged to unprecedented levels, particularly affecting Germany's chemical industry, which is facing prolonged negative consequences due to limited natural gas supplies. However, commodity markets have proven resilient, with wheat prices trending lower recently. On the financial front, Russia's commercial oil exports recorded an average monthly decline of $2 billion compared to the same period last year. The decline was mainly due to G7 price caps, higher discounts on Russian crude, and the global oil price decline. These factors not only affected Russia's revenues, but also increased instability in the international energy market. At the same time, Ukraine has also witnessed a dramatic change in its military capabilities, marking a major turning point in the modern war landscape. President Joe Biden's decision to authorize the use of long-range missile systems has opened up new strategic opportunities for Ukraine's defense forces, helping the country improve its offensive and defensive capabilities in the context of a protracted conflict. This development not only strengthens Ukraine's defense capabilities, but also creates significant changes in military strategy and has far-reaching implications for the financial and geopolitical factors involved. Ukraine's domestic defense industry has undergone a dramatic change, with its production capacity for mortar and artillery shells increasing from 1 million to 5 million per year. Notably, in December, Ukraine unveiled the Peklo unmanned missile with a range of 700 kilometers and a speed of 700 kilometers per hour. The Defense Ministry aims to deliver more than 30,000 long-range strike drones by 2025, adding to Ukraine's increasingly modernized arsenal, which includes missiles such as the ATACMS with a range of 190 miles, the Storm Shadow and Scalp with a range of 155 miles, and the domestically produced Neptune cruise missile with a range of 1,000 kilometers. International support has been key to Ukraine's military modernization, with the United States investing $5 billion to expand its defense production capacity. Meanwhile, France and Sweden have pledged to double their ammunition and explosives production capacity by 2025. A 15-nation coalition led by the Czech Republic has pledged $7 billion to supply 500,000 artillery shells by 2024. In particular, U.S. arms manufacturers have significantly increased production, with GMLRS from 803 to 1,067 shells per month, HIMARS from 5 to 8 systems per month, and PAC-3 MSE from 21 to 48, 6 shells per month. The future of Ukraine's defense industry promises to be a world leader thanks to international cooperation. Northrop Grumman has signed an agreement to establish a production line for medium-caliber ammunition in Ukraine, while the Swedish government has pledged to support the production of long-range missiles and unmanned aerial systems. Ukraine's expanding strike capabilities allow it to target approximately 245 Russian military and paramilitary facilities within the ATACMS's range. Through the reform of its legal framework and operational mechanisms, the Ukrainian defense industry is strategically shifting its focus from solely military technologies to the development of dual-use technologies. These advancements serve not only military purposes, but also contribute to the strengthening of the post-war economy. By diversifying its capabilities, Ukraine has not only enhanced its defense capacities, but also positioned itself to establish a robust defense industry that will be central to its economic recovery and growth after the conflict. In parallel, Ukraine's missile strikes on Russian infrastructure have demonstrated a complex interplay of military, financial, and strategic considerations. An analysis of U.S. security assistance reveals that the commitment to Ukraine has surpassed $66.5 billion since the Biden administration began, providing the financial foundation necessary for both Ukraine's defense operations and its broader economic strategy. This combination of military and economic support plays a pivotal role in Ukraine's efforts to maintain pressure on Russia while simultaneously laying the groundwork for long-term resilience and economic revitalization. Although the cost of each Ukrainian attack on Russian oil facilities has ranged from $1 million to $5 million, the attacks have affected about 17% of Russia's refining capacity, representing a significant cost-effectiveness. The direct financial impacts include lost revenue from reduced exports, with $135 million in losses in April alone, repair costs estimated at tens of millions of dollars for each attacked facility, and operational disruptions affecting the production capacity of oil refineries. This financial fallout has led to a Russian national budget deficit of 2.4 trillion rubles in the first quarter of 2024, and according to the International Energy Agency, Russia's oil revenues fell by more than 25% in January 2024. This shows that the attacks are effective not only in military strategy, but also in economic warfare. However, the strategic impact of these attacks goes beyond direct financial losses. Along with international sanctions, the Ukrainian missile campaign has contributed to the freezing of 300 billion of the Russian central bank's reserves in the EU and G7 countries, along with the freezing of around 20 billion of assets from sanctioned entities. In addition, the sanctions have affected 70% of the assets of the Russian banking system. In response to Ukraine's strikes on its oil refineries, Moscow launched a massive retaliatory campaign targeting critical infrastructure across Ukrainian territory. The Russian military deployed a combination of 78 air, ground, and sea-based missiles, along with 106 Shahed drones, in coordinated assaults aimed at crippling Ukraine's energy infrastructure. The primary focus of the strikes was on Ukraine's thermal power plants and electrical substations. Key regions such as Kyiv, Kharkiv, Mykolaiv, Odessa, Lviv, and other far western oblasts were affected by the attacks, leaving over 1 million homes without power. The systematic nature of these strikes led to severe disruptions in energy generation and distribution systems. Notably, the thermal power plants operated by DTEK suffered damage, marking the 13th assault on Ukraine's power grid. With critical facilities in Kharkiv, Dnipro, and Poltava also being targeted, the energy systems in western Ukraine were not spared, further exacerbating the crisis. In response to these Ukrainian actions, Moscow implemented a series of economic countermeasures designed to stabilize its domestic market. A 6-month ban on gasoline exports was swiftly enacted to prevent shortages and keep prices from spiking. Russian authorities also redirected fuel supplies to ensure local market stability. Beyond fuel markets, Russia sought support from Belarus, securing 3,000 tons of emergency fuel imports, and initiated power outages in several regions to prevent strain on the electrical grid. On the diplomatic front, Russia framed its actions as necessary retaliatory measures against Ukrainian aggression, citing attacks on military air bases using US-made missiles as a justification. The Russian Ministry of Defense warned that without international intervention, these retaliatory measures would continue. Russia also strengthened its diplomatic and economic ties with allies such as Belarus, Iran, and North Korea, leveraging these partnerships to counter Western sanctions and maintain strategic advantages in the face of mounting pressure. The scale of Russia's military response underscored its determination to protect its territory. The Russian Air Force successfully intercepted 59 Ukrainian drones overnight in regions including Belgorod, Voronezh, Kursk, Bryansk, and Tambov. These defensive actions demonstrated Russia's resilience, maintaining both defensive and offensive capabilities despite the ongoing conflict with Ukraine. An analysis of Russia's oil sector reveals a surprising resilience against Ukrainian strikes, challenging initial assumptions about its vulnerability. Contrary to expectations, the refining sector has shown remarkable adaptability, defying predictions that it would become Russia's economic weak point. The flexibility of the sector, especially its ability to manage disruptions, allowed it to withstand the initial impacts of the conflict. In terms of escalation, military analysts have identified 3 primary risks that could significantly affect the trajectory of the war. Initially, President Putin seemed confident that a war of attrition would either fracture Ukrainian capabilities or reduce Western support. However, these expectations have diminished as the situation evolves, and near-term prospects for achieving either of these outcomes appear substantially reduced. The Kremlin's control has grown brittle, and this presents two possible paths: a withdrawal from Ukraine or further deliberate escalation. The United States, particularly through Vice President Kamala Harris, has raised concerns with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky about the potential global market disruptions from extensive refinery attacks. The Russian oil industry has demonstrated significant structural flexibility, which has allowed it to adapt to the ongoing disruptions. With a refining capacity of 5 million barrels per day, Russia holds substantial operational reserves. This capacity enables the sector to absorb facility shutdowns through the utilization of spare capacity, redirect crude exports to compensate for reduced refining output, and maintain stable domestic fuel prices despite external pressures. Russian refineries have displayed rapid recovery capabilities, with many damaged units returning to operation within 2 to 3 weeks. Furthermore, the Russian government has been indifferent to whether companies sell crude or refined products, offering additional flexibility to the sector. This adaptability has helped maintain relative stability in domestic wholesale prices, which have shown less volatility compared to US markets. On the global stage, the ongoing war in Ukraine has had far-reaching effects, triggering the first true global energy crisis. Energy markets are now operating under an unprecedented level of geopolitical uncertainty, with governments strengthening energy security measures and adjusting trade patterns for oil and natural gas. According to the International Energy Agency, global energy dynamics are expected to undergo significant changes in the coming years. Renewable power capacity is projected to grow to 7,300 gigajoules by 2028, with renewables set to overtake coal as the largest electricity source by early 2025. Nearly 200 governments are expected to commit to tripling global renewable energy capacity to 11,000 gigajoules by 2030. The war's impact on the energy sector is also accelerating the expansion of renewable technologies such as electric vehicles and heat pumps, which are seeing a surge in popularity. The biggest legacy of this global energy crisis may be the acceleration of the transition away from fossil fuels, with demand for oil, gas, and coal expected to peak within the next decade. Despite these long-term projections, the immediate focus of the market remains on sanctions and self-sanctioning along the oil supply chain. The market anticipates several significant impacts from the ongoing conflict, including massive shifts in trade flows and sharp adjustments in price differentials. There is also a greater redirection of oil flows from Europe to Asia, as well as the potential weaponization of energy in escalation scenarios. In this environment of rising tensions, there is a possibility that Russia may struggle to clear its barrels, which could lead to the weaponization of energy. Such a scenario would place significant pressure on market balances and oil prices throughout 2024. To ease the price pressure, responses are likely to come from the supply side, including increased production from OPEC+ and accelerated output from North America. Future scenarios suggest continued market volatility and geopolitical uncertainty. The energy sector transformation accelerates as governments worldwide strengthen security measures and increase renewable capacity investments. If you support Ukraine to win this war, please comment number 1 in the comment section below to let us know. Market experts anticipate massive shifts in global trade flows, while the possibility of further escalation remains a critical concern for international stability.